Greetings, Nimrods. Hope you're all doing well out there. Corona hasn't got me yet. Got the beard, but other than that, we're doing just fine. So we're continuing on with our Reloading 101 series, and today we're moving on through the components to powders. And we did primers last week, and not too much to talk about powders because we're talking about target loads, and a lot of these are. I use that for slug loads. A lot of this is not target load stuff. I have a lot of different powders and a lot of different components for my hunting loads, which I do a fair amount of reloading for hunting. But we are talking today about target loads, so a lot of this stuff isn't really relevant. A lot of these powders aren't things we're going to talk about today. So basically, a couple of the basic safety things. You really should leave your powders in the existing containers they came with, and when you're done using it for the day, unless you've got a progressive machine that you use a lot and you have a cover for it, you would want to put your powder back in the container it came out of, for a couple reasons. One, so you don't forget which powder you have in your powder bottle. You know, you could label it, I suppose, but again, if you're doing hunting loads and you have a lot of different powders kicking around, probably a good idea just to put it back in its container and put it away. The other thing is these are, obviously these are UV resistant containers. Light's not getting through there. Your powder will degrade inside a clear bottle. You'll notice that in a lot of the bottles or the progressive setups. Do I dare move the camera? Progressive setups, the tubes do get stained from leaving the powder in there. And I'll leave powder in here, and I'll cover it, or hopefully I keep this thing going. But I'm not likely to ever change powders in this without going through a big rigmarole, so don't do it. Always put the powder back in the bottle, right? Here's a few more safety items to keep in mind when you're handling powder. So, what powders do we use for our target loads? Well, I'll tell you, sometimes it's what's available. We went through the Barack Obama era there, where a lot of components got really shorted, and I haven't done a lot of progressive reloading through that phase. I really slowed down with my target shooting. I would tell you my 12 gauge, and I've gone through a few different powders with that, and what I settled on was clays. Just regular clays, not international, not universal, but regular clays powder for a 12 gauge target load. And I do 7/8 ounce loads. I found that stuff to be the ticket. Nice, clean burning, really efficient. Lots of different recipes for it, so no problem finding recipes for your components. In fact, that's one of the reasons I liked using it, is that with the in the hulls section we talked about the hulls I use. Using the AA's or the STS ones. There is a recipe, published data in probably actually on the Hodgson's website. They have a great website for their reloading data that allows you to use the same hulls, the same powder drop, and Federal and Winchester primers. And the pressures are different and everything. They're not the same recipes, but they do have recipes that all fall within the same range of acceptable pressure with 7/8 ounce loads with all those components. So that's like a dream come true, right? So I can load up my progressive machine, and I run out of AA hulls. Well, I can use these. Or if I run out of Winchester primers, I can use the Federal. So that really is one of the reasons why I settled on clays. And it's a clean burning powder, and it's a powder that's not a super fast powder, so it makes relatively mild recoiling loads. So that's what I settled on for my 12 gauge reloads. But right now I'm using E3. And E3 is a great powder. It's very, supposedly it's very consistent over temperature ranges. That's another thing that can affect powder is temperature raising. Not too much of a concern with target loads because, you know, you're probably not going to go skeet shooting when it's 15 degrees out. I've done it, but you're probably not going to do that. One of the big ones for that is the blue dot. Blue dot is one of these ones that's known for really cold temperatures not working well. So think about that when you're loading your duck hunting loads. So the E3, I've still got a fair amount of it left. You know, this is an 8-pound container here. It's just a lot of powder. And again, I just haven't been reloading Progressive very much, so I still got like 3 pounds left to get through. And then I get to buy my clays again. I can't wait. So if we ever get to shoot again, if the skeet range ever opens up again after this Corona scare, I would like to really start laying out some shells on my Progressive machines and getting through this powder. The reason I would not keep going with E3, this was what it was available when there was a shortage of powder, is that Alliant, although it's great powder and it's a good, they do have good information on their website, reloading data. They're very specific, and I think I said this in the primer section, that, you know, if you're using a Remington hull, almost all the recipes they're going to have on their website is with Remington hull and Remington primers. So with a Winchester hull, it's going to be Winchester primers. And there's some exceptions, but not many. So it's really hard to find reloads that, you know, you could do what I could do with the other one, that, you know, one works with both of these and, you know, different primers. It's just, it's more convoluted. You have to set up for one specific load, and just less flexibility with the data that they have available. So that's one reason why I wouldn't stick with this. It works fine. It's you know, it has the same qualities as the clays, but I will not be buying it again if clays is available. So that's what I do for 12 gauge. What do I do for 20 gauge? This is my standard. Unique is a great powder. There's 12 gauge loads, there's 16 gauge loads, there's 20 gauge. It's very good for 20 gauge. One thing about shotgun powders, they happen to be pistol powders too. Well, I don't shoot pistol and don't reload for it yet, but apparently a lot of these are in the same burn range as pistol loads. So this would be a pistol powder or a shotgun powder, and it's very very diverse. I like this powder. I've got some great, and again, it's a slower burning powder than some of the target powders that you might use for 20 gauge. Herco is one, although that's a slow burning one too. Green Dot, you know, that's sort of a 20 gauge reloading target load powder. That's very common. This is slower burning than that, and again, less recoil with a slower burning powder. So I like Unique for 20 gauge. The international clays, that's another good one for 20 gauge. I do use that. Problem with international clays is that they have a ton of data because it's Hodgins and not Unique. But you know, there's I don't bounce around with my hulls with the 20 gauge. I think in the hulls video I probably told you how much I like the AA hulls, and that's all I use for the target ones. And sometimes I use international, those straight walled hulls that I do sometimes use, the Cheddite ones. Generally I'm using international. A lot of good loads for this too. These are only 14 ounces though, so you're getting gypped. You know, you buy one of these, you get 2 more ounces of that, and you know, how many grains in a pound? Pop quiz, 7,000. So it's a lot of loads. So this stuff goes a long ways. Okay, so what would we use little gun for, do you think, for target loads? Let's think about that. Little gun. Probably little shells, right? You might use that for 410. And that's all we use it for is 410. Because 410 is a higher pressure load, a much slower burning powder. This is almost, you know, you wouldn't be able to use this in anything but 410 and then some pistol, almost rifle powder. This is a really slow burning powder. But all I use it for is my 410s. And I got a few pounds of that, and it really goes a long way when you're, you know, dropping 12 grains or whatever it is in the recipe I'm using for the target load. So won't be buying any of that anytime soon. I've got enough for years because that really does go a long way. And we obviously don't shoot the 410 all that much these days. So there it is. That's what we're using for our target loads. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you give it a big thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a big thumbs down. Feel free to comment in the comments, and definitely share this with your social media friends, because I haven't figured that out yet. You know, you can use that on your face page or your Snapchat or whatever they are, your Instagram. Go ahead and share it. Get the word out, and then subscribe, because Nimrod wants you to subscribe. Happy hunting, Nimrods.